Beaxy Exchange is a safe, easy-to-use, U.S.-compliant exchange.
Because cryptocurrency is such a young industry, there's still a real lack of transparency.
So we are actually using Dragonchain's technology to help solve these transparency issues.
Beaxy partnered with Dragonchain to take advantage of their anti-fraud and transparency systems.
So using Dragonchain's technology, we're actually able to use provably fair tech to verify that our order books and trades and executions are all very transparent to our users. This alone makes Beaxy the only provably fair exchange in the entire world.
I have more than 20 years experience doing large, technically complex projects. One of the things that I was really pleased with in working with Dragonchain is that it allowed us to do the integration with their technology very quickly.
That's what makes Dragonchain and this a perfect partnership.
All right, welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. This is episode 7. Today we have Greg Lang and Sam Johnston from the Rivet team, Abbott, James Carney from the Beaxy team, Orrin, creator and entrepreneur, and I'm Joe Roets, architect, founder of Dragonchain. Update on the very first episode with the new model for the roundtable, where we give layer ownership tokens to all of the guests, the hosts, and all of the topic contributors, topics and questions. And so this past week, we were under 3,000 views. So each host will get, I should say, so we will actually create 2,000 new layer ownership tokens for the layer that governs this whole thing. And each host will get 222 lot. That's Greg, Sam, Distant, Satoshi, Sean, Orrin, and me. Each topic contributor will receive 166 lot. That's Jegs and Goose Creek Unlimited. We only had 2 last week. So these these tokens come with ownership in the community. They come with free edits. They come with future governance votes. And right now we're expecting to go out quarterly. When we get everything kind of ramped up and moving along, we hope to just push them out weekly at the end of the week after every episode. So that's it. That was my plug too, den.social. After each topic, let's see here. Okay, I guess sorry about this. I'm like going through notes here. Let's get to the topics. Is it refreshed? Yes, it's refreshed. So these are the topics. First up, Brindlebeard. At what point do or can you look at a coin or project where it might make you say, I can get behind that? So what is a good selling point for a coin or a project in crypto that typically sells you? Who wants to go?
It doesn't seem as if.
Yeah, I'll take the kick it off here. I think we'll go with Old Faithful. The number of users and the revenue that it's generating. Right? Does it have those two pieces that can stand alone? Right? Those two pieces can stand alone. Then you look at all the auxiliary stuff like the number of users on the using the actual blockchain, like can it generate the type of revenue to continue operating, the runway for the project. Looking at those different pieces, you can then make a pretty educated decision. Other things that it depends on also, is it a bull market or a bear market? Because, you're looking at those two things, coins, that have the backing, have the community, have the hype, also perform well in a bull market, right? But they tend to fizzle out in the bear market. So you got to look at the macro economics behind something before you really decide, like, is this worth diving into?
Yep. I like to look at the teams and the project's kind of overt values. We, as sort of a general practice in starting up anything in this world, kind of like to base that on a set of core principles that we think are important. So I look for things like, is the project open source? Is the project protecting people's privacy or making overtures to say that they are? Are they taking the steps to be taken seriously, not just as an investment, but as a technology product that does what we're all here to do in Web3, which is take away some of the harms that come with the way that the web has been run before, and repair some of those issues. And if they're trying to do that, or if they're taking on some other industry through the means of tokens, that needs to sort of have some of that stuff applied to it as well. Banking is a great example. I don't think anybody here would second guess that banking doesn't need to be disrupted, and for all of those reasons. So yeah, I sort of look to see if they're going to be a positive force for good before I get behind them.
Yeah, Greg, I think you make a good point too there. Like, there's two separate thought processes, right? Are you just in it for the pumponomics, or are you actually in it for the underlying tech that could fundamentally change the way that something's done in the world, right? So I think you need to evaluate where you are on that side of the line, and then make that decision about, okay, am I in this for Shiba Inu because Elon Musk tweets about it? Or am I in this, for Bitcoin because this could change the entire banking, as you mentioned, right? So it really depends on, I think, personally, where people lie on that divider, right?
Yep. And I also think there's a tendency for the projects that are doing the right things to just have a natural success gravitate towards them. Like, if they're doing it and pulling it off and doing it the right way, then, the intrinsic value behind their project is there, and then, the number go up, right?
Yeah.
On the topic of the number go up, that's, I guess, one of the reasons why it is that I think the word would be Dogecoin maximalist in some regards. I do love the things that Dogecoin, for example, are doing in terms of breaking standard valuation of what I would do for supporting a cryptocurrency. It is not a coin that is what I consider viable for long-term usage and for its valuation, but it is also at the same time a coin that, because of how they've done things, has a lot of the token of the coin actually moving around, buying and selling constantly, because it's so much of a devaluation based market. It is very interesting and fun to follow. And I usually concentrate on, is the coin finite? Does the coin have any reason to exist beyond just being another coin to pump and dump? Or is there something technologically intrinsic that is very cool about it? However, Dogecoin is one of those things that, because it is such a meme currency, it is such a very marketable thing that it's fun to follow.
And there's no single metric to really judge a cryptocurrency. What it is it's a framework with different principles, and that changes over time because the market changes over time. So really do your research, check their social media, check the team. You should know who founded it. If they claim to be decentralized, do they carry themselves in that way? And really make sure that they're standing on the things that they're purporting.
It's a very good point.
Right.
I have some angles on it that they're it might be boring even, but that if you, in my opinion, if you take something and pretend like there's no crypto involved, right? First, and this is not, there's definitely a crypto component, because there's definitely the short-term current events, hype cycles, flavor of the week stuff, but there is a huge piece that a lot of crypto Twitter typically ignores, which is pretend like it's an open source project in the early 2000s, right? Is it something that someone's going to use? Is there something that people are using? Is it a team that has a record of just blowing it out of the water? Those types of things are the key things you want to look at, and when I've done that, even in this crypto market, from 2017 on, those are the ones that really, if I just looked at it in a, pure, how much did I make on this thing? Things like, I remember listening to a podcast about Augur, right? And I was like, that actually is something that is unique in the world that, and I've not paid attention to them for years and years, right? So I don't know where they're at or anything else, but I know that it was just a very interesting use case that you couldn't do with regular software. That it was like a really good intersection of capabilities of blockchain and what's needed in the world, right? And very disruptive, and I think some of the ideas for how it could be used, I don't know if they've come true or not, but it paid off, right? And beyond that, I think there's a huge bit that we're still so early in this technology, right? That we can't pretend. I'm going to make a guess and a prediction here, but we can't pretend to know what the bounds of possibility are for whether you're talking about the numbers or the adoption of this tech, right? And if you step back and say, okay, I'm going to look at software trends from the 80s on, right? You can see very clear indicators of what worked is, the disruptive nation, things that take inefficiencies out of an industry. Those things explode, and whoever can get in front of that, ends up being, one of the billionaires that are here today, right? And a lot of that's still possible with this stuff because we've not hit adoption at all, right? There's not a single blockchain out there short Bitcoin. And I even think Bitcoin, you couldn't really say adoption is hit, right? You have a lot of wallets. You have a lot of people that speculate. You don't have anybody in there for the tech anymore. Even the maximalists don't actually care about the tech. They care about store value. Literally, they care about the number. That's it. They don't care about, is it used for payments? Is it used to disrupt banking? No. It's like you tell me, even with El Salvador, you can't tell me that it's disrupting banking at all. It's scaring the crap out of bankers, which is, I think, why you're seeing a lot of stuff that you've seen the past few years. But adoption hasn't hit, and I think if you think about, and we don't have a way to measure it because Amazon pre-adoption wasn't accessible to some kid in somewhere in the third world, right? This tech is, that all of a sudden it's just software. And it's an open market, in some case, totally decentralized, where anybody can get involved. And so you have to think about, what does that mean when adoption hits, when the actual uses, the use cases of all of these different technologies really hit home, and the businesses are like, holy crap, we could basically blow our competitors out of the water if we plug this in. It's a totally different world. And I think you're going to see exponential. You're going to see stuff that people are like, will not. Today, it would be unfathomable. You wouldn't be able to say the numbers that I think you will see without people laughing at you. That's what I think is coming, and it's all about adoption. It's all about the real technology. It's not just a thing. And inside of that, there's all the little pieces, which are day-to-day. Musk tweets something, right? So like that type of stuff, I think is going to be just little bitty bumps when we see what's really coming. So,
and you bring up something I've been actually talking to people about for a few years now, just on the side, is that one of my biggest concerns with crypto right now is just the throughput in general. Whenever it is I compare the throughput of transactions per second of crypto with credit card, Visa, MasterCard, or how many processes or how many actions that Stripe processes a second, there's a stark night and day difference between the throughput capabilities. Along with that, the historical keeping of every single transaction on the chain adds on to a cumulative effect, where it is that the disk requirements just get absurd once you look at that amount of transactions you're going to be able to process a second. And I've been trying to find myself a cryptocurrency that can somehow address these issues while still being a cryptocurrency, not just a transactional based chain.
Yeah,
that's all about philosophy. That's a software problem combined with philosophy, and you have to know where the trade-offs are. That's all that is, right? So, and we made trade-offs that I think work, that meet that might not meet any. There might be a religious reason that you don't want, the way that we do something. But
and that's actually another really good point. Like, there's nothing that's going to be perfect that matches your ideal thing. Like this is pretty amazing technology. You can do things with it that would seem like magic or magic-ish if you think about them in a purely, how could I tell the the story of this thing to other people sense. But it's never going to be perfect because it's part of the real world. It's a human created system that's purpose is to get around the shakiness of the way humans interact with each other in the world. And because of that, it's never going to hit all of the ideals. The question is, which compromises are being made, and can you get behind those compromises? Can you understand them? That's just another really great way to look at evaluating a project.
Yeah, I think I'd maybe add one last thing that just on the other side of the coin, right? If you're going to look at something long term, right, you need to look at what time you're getting in, right? The pre-sale, are you going to be dumped on? The coins in circulating supply, is there other underlying fundamentals for a burn? Things like that. It's like those things all drastically affect the value of it long term. Right. So on the other side, not the, what you believe in, the fundamentals of blockchain, how you think it'll impact the world, because, they say money can't buy happiness. But, I think that the millennials are like, well, I don't know. That's bullshit. I think that's kind of like it's that ideal has kind of changed recently,
because the research paper even changed. The original research that proved that has now been disputed with follow-up research saying, in fact, you can increase your net happiness by having more money.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Exactly. Right. Proving the point there. So it's like
even health. So yeah.
Right. So it's like the fundamentals. Yes, the blockchain and all of the things behind it will have a drastic impact over time. Right. And we're already seeing it have a drastic impact, but also the monetary value behind everyone adopting it and, the number go up, as we say, is important. So it's like those things do matter. So if you're looking at a project to get into, you obviously don't want to be the last one on the train. And then everyone that was in the pre-sale is now, you're holding their bag. So that's the other side of it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's by the way, when we say get behind it, it's really funny. We all assume buy, and there is a lot of potential even to say getting behind something is just, supporting them, even saying, yeah. And it's a weird thing too, because anybody who's run a project in this world through ups and downs would know that it is the weirdest thing that you have some community members that are just so bought in that they love it, and you love them. They're the best people. They are the best people in the world. They're the most beautiful people in the world, right? But then you have people that, for whatever reason, they come in and sometimes it's, you could say theoretically they want people to sell so they can just buy more of it. But also there's a lot of impatience. Obviously, people who lived through 2017 were very impatient in 2018. Right. And it's a rough world. There are people who put too much money in. It's just like,
right. That kind of reminds me of the first thing you were talking about. Kind of reminds me of betting in a sense, because once you have stake in something, like for instance, I could even get behind, I don't watch cricket. And if you watch cricket, sure. But if I have money on the line, then I'm vastly more invested.
World.
Right. I'm just way more invested. So like, I think it takes I want to say maybe a special kind of person to get behind something and just support it long term but I personally, if I have a stake in something, then I'm vastly more interested in its success. Right?
Well, it's I think the equivalent of there's even a skit on it of what jersey you're wearing, right? That it's a team color thing. It without even any investment or betting, that there are people who identify with a sports team and actually feel really negative and bad when they lose, right? And there's a lot of that in there too. And the money just tightens that, I think, right? It's just, okay, I have a little bit of money in there and they're my team. And it's, I call them, it's clans, it's tribes. That's very much what it is, and you have these assemblies of tribes and historically everybody knows the tribes that don't combine lose, that Rome coming in, but when the tribes are able to get together, either it's typically under a single leader, but usually by conquering, but that's the only way they survive. It's not even that they win that way. It's like, that's the way they sacked Rome. I mean, there's a whole bunch of history around that whole thing, where all of the leaders that tech gets named after later typically combined a whole bunch of tribes into one, right? It's strange, and right now we're totally separated. Everybody, all the tribes. And it's weird because I don't know how it works with some people. Most people don't hold a single token, right? I'm sure there are some people, hold only Bitcoin, maybe, right? I could see that, but there's not going to be very many people that I only hold this one cryptocurrency token. And so I don't know if it's because my bag is bigger over here, or maybe I don't badmouth any of them, but there are people who don't hold them, that hold competing tokens that it's weird, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a bit of, we get into a world where we start acting like micro VCs, right? And the way that venture capital wins in the long run is by placing a lot of smaller bets across a broad range of things they believe they can get behind, right? So it's not so much don't invest more than you can afford to lose. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose across an entire portfolio of ideas you can get behind. And the more you can spread that out, the more likely you are to to have some of your chips with the winners and some without. So that's really good advice. Don't just not invest more than you can afford to lose in one thing. Take what you cannot afford to lose, make a pool of it, and then slice it up as much as you can, and spread that around things you can get behind. Some of them will lose, some of them will win, but you won't be on all of the losers unless you're really unlucky.
So I want to try and flip this question on its head. What are some of the easiest ways of telling that a coin is a I don't know if you like the term or not, of shitcoin, but what is your sniff test for figuring those out?
That's an interesting thing. What if we just said a shitcoin could be anything? It wasn't just Bitcoin versus shitcoins. I mean, you could say at some point, and I think the entire world would agree, even the maximalists. Let's say Bitcoin got rid of their 21 million limit. It's a shitcoin, right? I think a lot of it is adherence to principles is a big primary there, right? Which some would say Bitcoin has, some would say it hasn't, right? It's no longer peer-to-peer cash, even though that's the freaking top line of the white paper. Is it a shitcoin? I don't know. And I think that's the big one. The other would be fundamentals, and what they're still building versus I threw this out there and I'm just all pump and dump speculation. I'm going to get somebody to say something on Twitter and do my thing, right? I don't know. That's my angle anyway.
If the U.S. Federal Reserve buys it, that's my that's my whole thing.
Anybody else? That's a good question. That's a good one. Okay, let's go to this and then come back to the next topic. How about that? Is that good?
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
All right, next topic. Oh, question from Jegs. Let's see here. I'm new into the blockchain space. Pitch me your product. By the way, I know Jegs is not new into the blockchain space, so this is so anyway, okay. Pitch me your product or a product you are familiar with in the simplest way. Who wants to start?
I'll go. Why not? Okay. So Rivet.cloud solves a problem that new developers experience when they come into a new technology, which is there are all these new things you have to deal with. And one of the biggest ones of those, especially in Ethereum, which is where we're focused, is if you want to build an application, you have to learn how to operationally manage the client for the Ethereum client. You have to have one of those running and have access to it, or you have to have access to it through some other means. Best way to think about it is, if you remember the early days of the internet, you would get this disk in the mail, and it said America Online on it. And you put it in your computer, and you load it up, and then all of a sudden, that box on the back of your thing knew how to talk to the internet, and you didn't have to figure out how to set it up. Rivet steps into a void where if you need a way to quickly understand how to interact with the blockchain and do it, we have an API that developers can use to query the blockchain and make transactions so they don't have to run a node. Sam, do you have anything you would add to that?
No, not really.
Okay.
I've been trying to think of any other projects right now that I can do the same kind of pitch for.
Bay?
Yeah. So Beaxy is a U.S. licensed crypto exchange. It's interesting how over time your what you really think matters changes, right? But we've boiled it down to a U.S. exchange that you can get a better deal compared to other U.S. exchanges, and it's personalized service, right? That's the benefit of a startup, that we can be hands-on with clients. We can walk them through how to build their own trading bot, how to get set up with provably fair orders, how to, any issue, they can talk to us directly as opposed to going to Coinbase and waiting 5 months, right? It's that's the benefit of having a startup, and especially as a U.S. exchange, it's just a different level of being able to interact with your clients.
Cool. Orrin?
We don't necessarily have any projects to share at the moment, but a project that we like is Anchor. Most cryptocurrencies need nodes to validate each transaction. And so Anchor gives you a clean and easy interface to run your own node instead of needing your own expertise to set it up. And so that's a project that we like, and just an explanation behind it.
Cool. I'll do Dragonchain. It is a blockchain that scales to give you basically decentralized proof, more proof than any other blockchain, because we combine other blockchains, without exposing your data until you want it exposed, or until you want to expose it to who you want to expose it to. So high level, that's, there's a lot more to it than that, of course. Gosh, that was a short question then, wasn't it? Or a short set of answers. So, All right, let's see here. We'll just go straight to the next topic, I guess, right? Is that okay? That was pretty good though. Angel Breaker question: how and where could NFTs drive gamification of customers, employees, and businesses? I think is a really good one. So
we'd like to tackle this.
Excellent.
NFTs could be really amazing if they're used as sort of a rewards program. And so customers of your business, you use it to incentivize them for repeat purchases or to reward them for purchasing something specific. And it can kind of be seen as a season pass, and using it as a sort of gateway model to incentivize actions within a certain closed or open system. And that was kind of how we decided to use NFTs. We recently worked with Near and Mintbase, which is an NFT platform built on Near, to mint our album. And we wanted to mint our album because we wanted to find a way to have more unlockable content and to reward our fans. And so instead of them just being able to listen to the audio and say, okay, we like Orrin's music, we wanted to give them extra unlockables. We wanted to make sure that we could go ahead and instantly give them this content, because normally with music, there's a delay time, as well as the benefits with NFTs, such as automatic and split revenue. And so that makes it easier when you have to do accounting.
Cool.
Nice. Nice. Anyone else?
That's actually super awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing about cases like that, right? Because there are two really unique things about NFTs. One is that they're unique, and that's kind of the obvious one. Like, anytime you think about an object in the world, it may be a mass-produced object, like this device right here, mass-produced. There are tons of them just like it, but this one's my particular one. Right, so I can have that and keep it here, and NFTs do that in the digital space, right? So you can have and keep a thing that is software, that is code, that is uniquely yours, which opens up a lot of possibilities.
This is my rifle.
Right, exactly. So with that, you can do things that software can do, and you can tailor the software experience of these things to be or to assume that you've got a unique thing in the hands of one person, right? And that is something that we have not been able to do with digital services. We have to make assumptions that all people can use it the same way. When we have this new thing, there's this unique ability to attach special capability, special function, unique treatment to one digital object in a class of digital objects. And it's really amazing. Like you can imagine the sky is the limit with that, and that'll probably be under imagining what's possible. So.
I like it. Yeah, you know, I would even say the way we're running this program, because it's built on DEN, you know, the whole reason that we have layer ownership tokens in DEN, which are NFT, is precisely for that it basically encapsulates everything you would need to run a community, you know, governance, how deeply invested is somebody in this this subject, this thing, and it's all in the end, when you step back, this entire technology is based on the ability for software to affect human behavior. That it's, you know, you incentivize. So you have to have the scarcity, which is literally the time and the ledger scarcity that blockchain can provide, which you don't have to use with blockchain, you know, but that's a key. That's the only reason that we have the show. It's the only reason that Bitcoin ever became what it became, is because of that scarcity. And in fact, it's probably, you could say that's more important than most everything else, because it doesn't even matter if its principles change. The scarcity will still affect the value, which will still drive the behavior, which is literally just to mine. You know, when I looked at it, I always thought there had to be other behaviors you could drive, including for the owner, the user, the trader, beyond just the scarcity. But it's funny that alone is enough, at least, to do what we see. And when you combine that with the ability to make a unique asset, you know, it's different. And we had a whole thing at Disney speaking about the actual use of that beyond community stuff, beyond things that we might do on DEN. We thought of NFTs before that was a term. It was literally, this is a single thing, right? It's something that we can track, that has an ID, and it's tracked as an asset on the blockchain, but it's not tokenized. It's not fractionalized. It is literally a single thing. That Disney looked at them as, a really good way to handle certification. This is an authentic, original object that might be a collectible thing, right? And we wanted to tie into physical. Like if you had something that you either won in a park or in one of their things, and then you could buy. You were the only people that could buy this particular physical item, whether it's a shirt or a badge or a pin or whatever else, because then those things become valuable for collectors, because now I can prove there are so few of these. You have the scarcity tied to the authentic, and the difficulty is always the user experience. And how do I get a normal person who doesn't care a lick about crypto to actually transfer that token when they sell the real thing, right? That's the hard part. So anyway.
Yeah, and that's, just to tack onto that, getting it into the real world is an interesting challenge, right? That is a yet to be solved problem. And there are probably some good solutions out there, but not for every case. To me, I always imagined it could be very awesome or very dystopian, right? Like we definitely wouldn't want to be hashing data out of people's genome that you read on the spot. That would be terrifying. Well, let's just take a sample of your blood and we'll generate your NFT. You're good to go. I mean, it would definitely connect you to it, but how we go about that is definitely going to be one of the technological challenges for the next 10, 15 years that hasn't seen a universal solution and probably won't.
And
Yeah.
for me, the entire NFT thing has actually been a bit broken because I've not been able to figure out that in real life aspect of use for it still. That's been the hardest thing for me. I can kind of get behind NFTs as far as representation of code, as long as that code is actually tied to a specific blockchain representation of NFT, and you can't just mint an NFT on multiple different blockchains for the same object or same bit of code. But otherwise, I've been a bit disenfranchised from the entire NFT craze because I've not been able to personally figure out and wrap my head around how to make that in real life experience actually work.
Here's a good example.
Go ahead, Greg.
Let's say real fast. Like, imagine somebody makes, like, if Tesla started having NFTs for the cars, you embed it on a wallet with a key that is like built into the center of the car, and if you tear it apart to get to it and rip it open and figure out how to hack it, you might be able to get it out. But otherwise, it's on a secure enclave in the car, and the car itself is interacting with a blockchain to say, like, this is genuinely the car that you're driving around in. There's a good example.
It can pay bills and it can buy stuff by itself and whatever else. Yeah,
Yep.
That's what it'd be for. So yeah.
I found a real world use for him, Sam. My buddy Franklin InstaFitch on or Inverse Fitch now on Twitter. He is really into NFTs. He's big in the NFT space, and he told me about a picture frame that you can buy. Really, high quality pixels, and recommended a couple of art blocks, different drops that they were doing. I purchased a couple of them, and they're hanging on my wall. Like that kind of made sense to me that way, because now I can flip through them, right? Okay, well, maybe this one doesn't make sense for this, party scene, but now I can flip through them and have that collection of NFTs in that regard. That's kind of just a small use case in that sense, right? I think there are a bunch more of them, but that's kind of a real world one that made sense for me. And going off the gamification thing, I probably spent like couple $100 on gas fees. There was this thing called Pokemon. It was like you got these eggs on the Polkadot network. Yeah, Orrin knows what I'm talking about here. And I was just racking them up. I was just buying all these eggs, and it didn't end up getting anything. But just the gamification behind that, and like how interested I was personally in looking and waiting for these eggs to hatch, and I was invested in it. I think that's a big part of the NFT space that's only going to get bigger, right? So, because there's two personal stories that worked out for me.
Oh yeah, I mean it's that personal connection to a thing that you can create with the NFT that has the economic potential, right? Like it's really because it's you that's interacting with it, and it's provably you because you've got this.
There is also something like, say, and we've done a lot of work where trying to handle traceability on a physical item, and as it moves, and that all becomes, and they're kind of two different models here, but that all becomes a matter of human behavior. That if it's not valuable, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If it's a valuable thing, I bought this thing. Let's say I bought a set of speakers, and if you like the audiophile world. I always buy secondhand because there's no way I'm paying the prices for the first round. But you have people that buy the first and then they go and sell it, and you have to trust them. And typically it's doable, but it would be a totally different world if it said, "Look, here's proof that I'm the first owner of this. This is the maintenance record on this thing. I can look it up independently. I don't have to trust that this guy's posted something legitimate." And when the transfer happens, I can then add, info like actually had a little scratch here I didn't know about, whatever. And that whole world, you could have an entire economy built around that, even on the accuracy and of how someone is, selling something. If they hid something, maybe there's even a penalty. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things you could do if you had a platform that just wrapped all those things together, and it'd be a real world thing where it would be directly incentivized to transfer the NFT when you sell the item. That ideally you wouldn't even be able to get the money unless you transferred the NFT. So I shipped it, they received it, the escrow's released, I get my money, they're satisfied, everything's clean. And now the beauty is they and the manufacturer, it's a brand thing. That first of all, there's no knockoff There's no Chinese knockoff that Amazon's selling that I have to hope this is not one of those. That really happens. It's ridiculous. And, you could say, I'm not even going to get into it, I guess. But either way, that if you had that, you wouldn't have any of those issues that you would have. This is an authentic product, or it isn't. Maybe I don't want an authentic product, but either way, that's a huge deal. And that's a real thing that if it is something of value, that I then have a much higher resale value. Therefore, I'm more likely to buy the new item. And I also have the ability to sell my old item so that I can buy. So I have 60% of what the new item costs. I mean, it's a normal thing that happens anyway, that you can plug in NFTs, and it really affects the honesty in the world, which would be really helpful. And I mean, the other side of it is basically that the NFTs, with all that history, like say if it's a gaming item, say it's a virtual item, so it's not real world, but it is a real world thing, that if you plug that in, and we have specific user experience philosophies around this, but where you have certain items that not only is the item rare, and it's provably rare, there are only maybe 5 of these in the world, therefore I'm going to pay a little more for it, therefore people want it more, therefore people will play the game more, or whatever else. But on top of that, you can see its history. You can say, I'm the 3rd owner, but some great gamer or some celebrity owned it before me, and therefore it has extra value, right? Even though it's maybe there are only 5 of that item, but this one has some special history, right? There's some very interesting things you can do there.
This really is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's writing desk kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's totally open, and the beauty is it's all a whole bunch of little intricate logic problems you can apply in different ways, and say, if we did this and applied that and did this, then people would freaking love it, right? So, and we're way too early, because it blows my mind that I was trying to get people to do that in 17. In 16 for that matter, and still nothing. So I'm like, man, I can't believe that that's not already out there. I mean, the adoption curve would be crazy, and I don't know. Anyway, if you did it right.
Yep. Oh no, there's so many things like that out there. Nobody has time to do when they come up with, so they try to talk other people into doing it. They just don't do it. Like, come on, take my idea.
Seriously, it's going to be really interesting to see what the future is going to be like as it is as we get into the closer and closer to 50% adoption of cryptocurrencies, whereas the people are actually casually using cryptocurrencies and at that scale. I'm really curious to what NFTs look like on a day-to-day basis when everybody has a wallet easily available to them to do transactions without even thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's something weird about it too, because when we all switched to digital, right? We went from physical world stuff to digital world stuff. For a while, people were weird about putting their credit card numbers in, but they got used to it, and now it's just all over the place, right? You'll even give your credit card information for services that you don't necessarily even start spending with yet. But with this, it's such a subtle shift. People are gonna have a hard time getting used to it in a new way, I think.
I was going to say, imagine if the car was, NFT powered, and imagine if my keys were all, so I could give authorization to my wife and my of a driving age kid to drive the car in certain hours, that type of crap, right? That would be pretty nice. I mean, you'd still be able to hotwire it maybe, but maybe not. But then you think about it, it's like, oh, and then imagine if credit cards were powered by, what if payments actually used crypto? I'm like, never mind. I don't want to get into that. Anyway, should we go to another one? It's only 43 minutes, so let's go to a little break, and then come back with another topic. Is that all right? Let's go fast though. All right.
The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now there are many. Because soon there will be more. because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The masterstroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
Rivet. All right. Next up is Angel Breaker again. Is that right? Is there something like for smart contract fraud protection, especially for insurance companies? Who wants to hit this?
I think there is. I mean, I do think there is an insurance product out there, right? I can't think the name of the project off the top of my head. I'm drawing blank.
There is.
Bridge Mutual.
There's unslashed finance too,
Right.
to protect against rug pulls for DeFi.
Very specific. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know we've talked to some groups. I talked to an insurance guy at the actually the Blockchain Seattle, what became this show, that he was in the insurance industry and had a lot of very particular questions about how it could be used. And after, and this is probably maybe a couple hours total conversation, something that looked really valuable and we never had time to hit was the ability for IT security directed insurance, like say, to look at how consistent your staff is run, what's your your updates, the things that you can track easily, and the ability to see if you have like a high, a change in your turnover rate. Let's say, like all of a sudden people are leaving, that your insurance rate should go up. That would be the way to tune it. That if you're keeping pace with security updates and you have a consistent staff and you have certain other parameters, that they could potentially reduce rates. And there was a whole thing around that they were interested in. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of room for innovation in models that secure or underwrite risk, right? Like ultimately what an insurance company is a particular model for underwriting risk that works given the primitives you have to use to put those contracts together, right? So with smart contracts, it's a whole different animal that has some limitations that don't really make a lot of sense in the real world. Like, once a transaction runs, it's hard to set up a condition where that initial contract's retroactive looking terms become important, right? So you always have to have kind of a trigger, but within that trigger, you can do a lot more than you used to be able to do with paper contracts and assure that they happen, right? Yeah. So I think there's, I mean, I haven't seen it and I don't have a particular idea off the top of my head what one might build, but the potential to do something that is better than insurance or better than fraud protection that we would see in a world where like there's this time gap between when somebody's defrauded and when they can find out that they've been defrauded and what triggers that and then who has to pay. Like if you examine some of those systems at the granular level, I would bet you would find things that were affordances for existence in a paper contract world. And that is the sort of thing, like I wrote this piece about how smart contracts aren't really contracts, because about the time they behave like contracts is about the time nobody has a chance to break them anymore. So they're more like options on unbreakable contracts that exist when they execute, but only for a moment. So by the time you can even talk about them, they've already finished executing, so they're not really contracts anymore. Kind of a weird high-level theory thing, but
I think the transparency though would be a big piece of that, because right now you have no visibility if some massive event happens like 9/11, that the implications, right? That they had to go to reinsurers because the insurance companies didn't have enough money to cover all the crap that happened, and you would at least have some ability to see the real the real landscape. This is if this happens, there's only this much there, right? So I have to account for that. Do I need to add more there in case something happens, or do I need to just say, well, that'll be good enough? I don't think it'll happen. It ends up being a market itself, but that's kind of a neat thing that would be, I think, improved itself. So,
yeah, I would imagine something kind of like a risk marketplace where you could you can place a bet on a particular thing being fraudulent or a fraudulent transaction or not. Like, is this legit or not? Prediction market, and the outcome of that could be a hedge against risk. So if it looks like fraud and it's sort of leaning that way, you can place a bet and have some security in it.
For that matter, I guess it could be open that people could bet against what you would normally be insuring. It's like people could put their money in on that. That's not a bad thing. It should be a huge market there.
Right, and it would incentivize building a pool that could cover risk when that risk actually materializes. But otherwise, giving people an opportunity to have some sure bets that don't necessarily have big payouts, but but also help provide information to the market that protects against fraud. That would be just a back of the napkin throw at something that we could create here that you couldn't do with the world of insurance as it exists today.
Man, super boring bean counter stuff. That's the thing. It's like I will say in my opinion, the weird thing about bean counters and things, not necessarily insurance, right? I think against insurance people, but it's like for whatever reason, if lawyers are the most evil component, like role in the world today as a whole, right? Not individually, but as a whole, if you look at lawyers, they don't produce anything. They just move stuff around, and there's a lot of evil involved. But I think the bean counters are the passive evil, that they're just there to basically screw up any product you love by whittling it down to its just bare bones. This is how much money we're making from it. We're going to get another 1%, and you're going to hate it, but you're still going to buy it. That's passive evil. So
it all fits in there. The elevation of the actuarial maths of a thing to the utility of it, to the use of it.
And that might be why, in all truth, I would prefer a machine that tells me up front, these are the rules. There's not a human there. There's not anyone that I'm going to say, oh, that person's horrible because I didn't get the outcome I wanted. It's something I know up front, I agree to, and I get what based upon events, right? I think it's an improvement, even if it's harsh sometimes, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, I think the key is people have to know what they're getting into. And you said that. And I think that's really the trick is, are we informing people properly? Because like you can say at the top of your lungs 15 times, right on your landing page, all investments are speculative. Past performance does not represent any probability of future performance. Do not invest more than you can afford to lose. And you can make them say, yes, okay, I agree, like 15 times. And people will still get upset when they inevitably lose. And so there's a really hard communication barrier there. At what point do you ever really get to wash your hands of accountability for it too, if you're the person who creates it? Like ideally you would never, because you would feel bad if people didn't get what they wanted. But but like I don't know, do you guys have any particularly unique insights on how to solve that problem? How would you communicate it?
I mean, we've talked about it before with education, and if people can't understand what the hell's going on, they can't understand what the hell's going on. Whenever things are complex and you have to rely on reading contracts whose code is not public, and all you have to go on is a general decompiling of the code representation of what it's doing. There's not a chance in the world that a standard person is going to be able to know what the hell's going on to be able to make an educated decision for themselves with, is this legitimate? Is this not? And you're going to need services, I guess, as a middleman to kind of bridge that. But then you're going to say people are going to be behest to the wills and whims of those services that they're going to be able to go through to get investments into these type of contracts and go through these contracts. And maybe there's some insurance system that's set up to working with these companies specifically for them fucking up for their own suggestions. But I don't know what the answer there is, because education is a hard one to solve.
But you know what it is? If you lay out everything as clearly as you can, potentially multiple layers, like here's the here's the code, here's a description of the code, here is an executive summary of the description of the code. And the funniest thing is, even when you do that, even in the smartest groups, we've seen this even when we did our token sale way back, that some of the groups that we were talking to kind of vet this, are we missing anything? Is there anything here that we need to make sure we describe or explain? That we went for probably over a week in one of the groups before someone finally read the white paper, and that changed everything, because they said, holy crap, this is different. This is not any of these other things. And it changed everyone's outlook, because all of a sudden, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll look at it now. And I think it's, in the end, people who are smart will typically be luckier, right? And whether that's luck or not, it's positioning. It's people who have rich parents will also be luckier for some reason. But one way or another, it's this. It's about laziness. So if you really want to get in and win, you can't be lazy. It's like you have to look at everything you have time to do, and you basically have to spend all hours of the day doing it, and you'll find something. Something that's good.
Well, I think that's another role for. I think that's a role for NFTs. I think basically you should have a switch you can flip that will do a transaction that gives you an NFT that says, "I'm taking responsibility for this." Right? Like I've taken this thing.
Oh yeah,
maybe the representation of taking that.
I would say
make it more powerful.
Even before blockchain, we had systems where we were worried enough about the privacy rulings coming that, and we were holding geospatial data, right? Mm-hmm. So we not only tracked that someone accepted the terms, we tracked exactly which terms, exactly the timestamp they accepted them, and we held it. Most systems that you look at today say, yes, they've accepted the current terms, and that's all they have, or they accepted the terms at that time, and the terms say that, he updates, right? With blockchain, it changes a lot, because you can, if somebody says, I'm going to sue you because you did this, we can say, the terms are this, you accepted it on this date, this version,
right.
And you get it thrown out. So
right, and you accepted the delta revision that we sent you in a transaction, right? Like this token you got on this day represents the delta revision where we changed this paragraph, and you said you accept this paragraph, right? Like,
yeah, that was the earliest description of our token, by the way, was this tokenized micro license, where you have a general set of terms for the platform and for the token itself. And then you have a specific set of terms for the service that you're using. And one way or another, those are all embedded on chain. And every single transaction that you make with the system is signed both by the system and you. And therefore, it's this two set of terms that are combined. That was kind of the purpose of that. So,
that's actually really neat. So.
And it's like nobody cares. that's the laziness, but it's like for a technologist, that's like, it was amazing. It was like this, so we got a patent on it, but it's one of the least exciting things we did, but it's still cool, I think. So anyway, okay, so 57 minutes. Does anyone want to plug anything that they're working on? Anything coming out? Anything we should know about and to follow?
I would just say what I usually say. If it doesn't exist, build it, and Rivet can help you.
Right on. You guys, anything? It's your chance. Plug away. Anything? Okay. We got a plug earlier, so it was all good. So we actually hit under an hour. So let's. I think we have another spot, and then you guys can stick around. We can touch base. I do have a hard cutoff pretty soon, but thanks. Cool. Thanks to everybody. Thanks everybody for joining. Join us again next week, and go make sure you vote on the topics for next week to make sure we get the best stuff to answer, and ask questions if there's something that you want to hear and it's not there yet. Right? Thanks a bunch.
Thanks.
Bye.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best. Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.